Hi, my name is Kris Burton and I'm going to demonstrate how to reamp a line level source into a guitar amp for dBs music. Reamping is a technique used by professional sound engineers and producers in order to enhance the sound, introduce air to the sound, create distortion, or to fatten bass lines and synth lines and create interesting effects. Artists and producers such as Pink Floyd, Noisia, Prince Fatty and Matthew Herbert are known to have reamped using guitar amps, studio monitors and even Hammond Leslie speakers to produce a unique sound. There are plugins widely available of amp emulations, but there is something unique about the use of analog equipment and indeed the real thing. Mix engineers have also used the technique to reamp a snare hit into a preferred snare in order to capture a better snare sound. Okay, so in order to make things clear, I've just wrote down where my patching is in a very simple form in a notepad, and that I'm going to transfer across to the patch bay here, just so I know where things are coming in. So we don't need to use input 1 because that's actually being used by the signal that we're sending out. But we have got channel 2, 3 and 4 are being used for our microphones. So the 57, I'm just going to put there, which is the SM57, the 87, and the ribbon. So I'm just going to put rib there. And then the next one is our bass. So again, we're not going to use that one, but we're going to use the D112, which is our AKG kick drum mic, and then the 414, which is the large diaphragm condenser microphone. So with using the labelling that I've put on the patch bay, I'm going to go from the 57. I'm going to go from the patch bay into the microphone, and I'm going to go around the mic stand and just into the mic like that. Then the next one, we've got the U87. So the next one I'm going to patch in is the Royer ribbon microphone. For the next amp, our bass amp, our first microphone is the D112, then the 414. Okay, so in order to get a signal from the desk, which we're going to be sending on effects 1 and 2, we need to lower the signal coming from the desk, because the signal coming from the desk is going to be line level. These reamp boxes basically take a line level and they'll attenuate or drop the level of the sound. And the reason we do that is that we don't want to send a really strong level into the amp and potentially damage the amplifier. So what we're going to do, in order to get from the desk, we need to patch it in the control room, which the desk is actually already hard patched into the patch bay. And then we're going to send the signal via our effects return, which is on the patch bay. And we're going to go from effects return 1 into our reamp box 1. And while we're there, we're going to patch in our bass amp signal as well. So we're going to go from effects send 2 on the patch bay into our second reamp box. I'm then going to get an instrument lead or a jack lead unbalanced. I'm going to go from the output, and that's going to go into our guitar amp. On the amp, we've actually got 2 inputs. We're just going to go into the first one, like so. So when I'm turning the amp on, I always switch it into standby mode if it's got one, and I'll make sure that the level's down to 0. This is actually for safety reasons. I don't want a loud signal to come through, and I don't want to blow the speaker either. Once it's on standby, volume's down. At the moment we're set to a low output, and this might be good for gigs, or it might be good for situations where you don't want a very high output. But for this, I'm happy to switch that to high, because Actually, when we start driving the amp, it will actually be in a separate room to us, and it's the only thing that's going to be sounding in the room. With the signal coming back from the control room, it's actually quite loud, so I'm not going to turn it up too loud for the moment, but I'm just going to introduce a bit of volume to there, a bit of signal into the amp. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a sound by adjusting some of the parameters on the amp. What the amp's got is there's a simple EQ on channel 1. We're actually just going to use channel 1 for this demonstration, and actually some reverb as well. So just going to switch that up and just work the sound. So within our DAW, we've set up our microphone tracks going from input 2, 3 and 4, and our sound source, which is going to be the guitar DI, that's going out of 1. We've then set up for the bass amp, so the bass DI is going to go out of channel 5, and we are going to cross to our microphone channels, which are going to be input 6 and input 7. So as you can see down here, I've labelled up the 57, the U87 and the Royer. And then for the bass amp, we've got the AKG 112 and then the AKG 414. On our channel inputs, we need to make sure that we're switched across to mic input. I'm now just going to bring up the channels slightly to around minus 10 dB, and we'll send some signal from our guitar DI. So the sound we're getting at the moment is just the DI'd guitar, and actually if you listen to it, it's fairly lifeless and just needs some amplification. So within the DAW, I'm going to set it to go back to the start of the loop or the section and just run a pass through. If I go to our mixer page, then I can just flick the metering over to the peak, and now we've got plenty of headroom at the top, and you know, it's a healthy level. When we're recording multiple mics and when we're reamping and yeah, recording drums, we need to make sure that everything's phase aligned. So actually when we play it back, everything plays without phase issues, which phase issues can basically cause clashes in frequencies. And if there's a clash in a frequency, then that frequency will start to drop in level. So what I've done is I've gone into our guitar mics just to check that they are in phase, which you can actually see there, which is great. Basically, if that waveform there was flipped over to the other side, that would be out of phase, or the polarity would be out of phase by 180 degrees. So actually what I'm going to do, there is a little bit of a phase shift in the audio, so I'm just going to cut that there, and I'm just going to budge it up just a little bit, just so we are perfectly in phase and there's no problems and no timing issues. It's only a little bit, but it's worth doing that. For this reamp, we're going to reamp the bass, and let's just have a listen. We set up the bass amp in the room, got a sound, but actually we want the bass sound to work with other elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the drum stem in and also the guitar stem. So that's our original. That's our D12. And that's our 414. And I guess it's worth explaining that the reason I've got more than one microphone is that I've got options and I can just pick and choose which ones that I want. It might be that I only use one microphone. Like for example, the 414 on the bass cab sounds a bit punchier and it sounds like it's got a bit more life. So that's why I'm multi-miking, is to capture different tones. So I'm just going to drop that into record. And I'm just going to listen to my bass mic, my bass mics, just so I know that they're not distorting or there's any problems. And just keeping an eye on the levels as well. And actually I can bring in the drums if I just want to check the sound against the drums. An EQ there. And then we listen to that with our bass. Start that again. So for the next reamp, we're going to basically apply some effects to a drum stem. So I'm just going to play with input on in Pro Tools. And actually, if I turn off our dry stem, we can hear what the reamp's doing. So it's quite punchy at the moment, so I might just EQ that. So I'm just going to switch them into record and then hit record. And I'm actually going to mix the bass, our recorded bass, in so we can have a listen to that in context. And the guitar. Cool. So once we've got that, then I'm just going to play that and actually combine the both. And if we look in Pro Tools, just make sure that, because there sounded like a little bit latency there, so we're just going to make sure that we haven't got anything out of phase. So actually that's looking pretty good. There we go. Oh yeah, maybe there is a little bit of latency there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match that up. And we can see that latency at the start there. I'm going to cut that off. That bit of empty audio there and just pull that forward. Just see how that sounds within the track now. So that's our original. It's good. I mean, it's like parallel compression, really. Add a bit of the bass in there. And a bit of the guitar. So actually now, if we play back just our reamp sounds, cool, yeah, that all sounds good. At dBs, we have some of the best equipment that you can get in the world for completing a professional reamping technique. But that doesn't mean to say that you can't do it with smaller systems. With a small portable record setup, a microphone, a couple of leads and a speaker, you can create a reamped technique just about wherever you want in the world.